You are listening to Co-Create Your Life. In this podcast, we delve deep into the law of attraction, dispel common misconceptions, and give our listeners the tools they need to build a magical, purposeful existence in their everyday lives. Reclaim the creative power you already possess and join us at co-creationcoaching.org/create. That's co-creationcoaching.org/create.
Welcome to Co-Create Your Life. This is episode 16, What to Do When Your Desire Just Won't Manifest. I am Brandon Oliveris.
And I'm Christine Oliveris.
And I'm Justin Williams.
And today we are discussing basically what happens when you're really working on a goal and it's just not budging. It's just not happening, and it's been months and months and months, or even years in some cases I've heard from people, and it's just not going to manifest. So I'm going to give some easy tips, hopefully, for what you can do in that kind of situation, so that you can hopefully kickstart it into gear and get things moving again. So before anything, let me make some announcements. If you would like to see the show notes or the transcript or leave a comment on this podcast, you can go to co-creationcoaching.org/create016. And if you'd like to ask a question for Co-Create Your Life, you can go to co-creationcoaching.org/ask/create. So before we get into our topic, I'm going to start something we do at least every so often when we get a question, where we have a little segment where we answer a question from a listener. And we got such a question just a couple weeks ago, so I want to answer that today before we get into our main topic. So our question today is from Lisa. And she actually has kind of two related questions, so we'll see if we can kind of join them together. They're very similar, so I'm going to see what we can do here. Okay, Lisa asks, most LOA people say that we cannot directly create in someone else's reality without their consent on a soul level, but some LOA practitioners do think that we can indirectly affect what people are in our world are like by choosing which parallel reality we want to be in. For example, there is a parallel reality where lots and lots of people have lung cancer and die, and there's a parallel reality where only a few people have it and rarely die, and we get to choose which world we are in. And then she gives a few examples of that, so I'm going to kind of scroll down. Suppose that you live in a world where diabetes is on the rise, but neither you nor anyone you know well happens to ever get diabetes. You're not a doctor studying diabetes or a researcher, and diabetes doesn't really affect you personally. My question is this. If it's true that you choose which parallel reality to be in, then does it mean anything significant if you are a world where diabetes is on the rise? Part of me wants to say, well, you wound up in this world rather than some other world, so there must be a reason for it. Maybe it symbolizes something. Part of me wants to say the only practical difference diabetes makes in your life is what the news announcer says on the radio, whether it's rising or falling. That's such a small thing. Maybe it's just random that you're in a world with diabetes rising. Okay. So basically what I'm getting is, does it matter that, does every part of your reality mean something? And it's a pretty simple answer, so we'll answer pretty quickly here. If there's some random detail, diabetes is on the rise, or terrorism is on the rise, or it's falling, or, whatever, does that mean something? Is that significant? If it's not meaningful to you, if it's not really of any consequence to you, you're not really suffering from that, you haven't had it affect you in any way. The answer is no. It's not significant.
And the three-word answer is, it's just life.
It's just life. So, my criterion for whether something is meaningful is this. Does it trigger you emotionally? It's that simple. If there's something that triggers you emotionally, then it is meaningful to you. Okay, and it has some meaning that why it is in your reality. Okay. Now it could, obviously it's a co-creation. Obviously you didn't on your own create this, create diabetes, some kind of big situation or epidemic, but, it is meaningful to you. You are a co-creator in that. Now, all you can do is heal that trigger, and then it kind of falls into the background, right? So I know some people will kind of hyper-focus on one specific detail in life, even though it doesn't really mean anything to them. They will hyper-focus on it, A really good example is like with politics. People will hyper-focus on politics, especially if they don't like who's in office, hint, hint. And so it is meaningful to them because it triggers them emotionally. If you heal that emotional trigger in your subconscious, it will fall back into the background where it's just like, whatever, doesn't really matter, right? And then it won't really mean anything to you, and it can kind of do its own thing. So that's really what you need to do. And she did ask a follow-up question. It's more or less the same thing, but basically if people around you are having certain things happening to them, either a certain disease, let's say they won the lottery or something, does that mean anything if you don't have that happen? Or if it's not meaningful to you? And the same answer, no. Unless it's an emotional trigger, it really doesn't mean anything to you. Okay, so that's our question. Do you have input on that, Justin?
I mean, it would be essentially like walking down an avenue with a bunch of alleys and side streets.
Right.
If you don't go down any of the side streets, or if the side street people or whatever don't come out into the avenue, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
What's in the side street?
Exactly.
It's there.
Yep.
It's a part of your reality technically, but it's not really a part of your reality in a way that would affect you.
Right.
Now, if you were to interact with it, or if it interacted with you, then it would affect you.
That would affect you.
You have to interact with each other. So you wouldn't wander around, you wouldn't walk around and completely ignore it, because then you would ignore the fact that it could actually be a factor. But if you just simply decide to actively reject it or allow it, whichever one I should say,
or ignore it,
then it's not going to affect you,
right.
Unless somebody like forces it or something. I mean, you would have to interact with it. So don't interact with it.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's pretty much that answer. So I just want to cover that real quick. And as always, again, if you have questions, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ask/create. And we'll have this segment, whenever someone has a question, we'll give a few minutes to just answer it. Just some questions don't really warrant their own podcasts, and this really didn't, just because it's a very simple question, honestly. So that's why, for those sorts of questions, it's like we get questions sometimes that are really simple, and we can't really talk about them for an hour or even like a half an hour. So those will just get a few minutes in the beginning of the podcast, and we'll answer those real quick. All right, now into our main topic. What to do when you just can't get your desire to manifest. So we had a conversation about this on Tuesday's support call. That was posted on Thursday. I really recommend checking that out. We had a conversation about basically, when your goal just isn't happening. What I said in the support call was basically, you have to realize when things just aren't happening. If things are going on for quite a while and nothing's moving, there's something wrong, right? You're just not getting it. And you can say all day, oh, it's just around the corner. I'm feeling good about it. I've seen people do that and justify it for years sometimes, right? But you don't want to justify it so much that you're just not getting it and you're okay with that, right? You don't want that state of affairs to become normal to you, because that's a horrible kind of transitional state that you're in. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm just okay with being in this transitional state where it's almost here, but not quite here. Almost here, but not quite here. That can be really frustrating. So that was, I think it's something that a lot of people experience, and I wanted to discuss that today also, just because there's so much more that can be said about it that I think needs to be said. So what I want to say first of all is to realize that the law of attraction, or I prefer to call it magic, is a real thing. Okay, in the support call also, I described how I have had a lot of success since starting to apply the principles that I've been realizing, right? Especially since last October. And I won't repeat all that here. You can go and see that. But, it is a real process. It just doesn't even surprise me anymore. I set my focus on something and it happens, right? It just every single time, that's just how it works. So it is a real process. I want everyone to get that through their heads. It is a real process. It is a real thing. It's not wishful thinking. It's not just positive thinking and feeling good and hoping it'll happen. Look, this is a real process. And unfortunately, a lot of law of attraction teachers, which is why I wish I could distance myself from the term, but I also want to reach out to those who are practicing it and not having success. So this is why I don't distance myself from it. A lot of law of attraction teachers will say, it doesn't matter if you get your goal. Don't care if you get your goal. Make it okay that you don't get your goal. Because it kind of provides an out, right? It kind of provides an out where, well, you didn't get it, but at least you feel good. That's really what you wanted anyway.
I feel like it's a take the easy way out approach.
Right.
Or I don't really have enough faith.
Right.
Or something.
Exactly.
I feel like it's, and I don't mean to use the word lazy, but it is.
Well, it's an out. And I think a lot of these people who say this kind of thing, maybe do they even believe it themselves?
Yeah.
Because if you do believe it, if it's a part of your everyday life, you know that this stuff works. So why would you say it's okay if it doesn't happen? It's okay if you don't get it.
You wouldn't say that in the real world. You wouldn't say that in work.
No. Right. Well, it's okay if I don't turn in my report, It's okay if I don't do what I have to do at work, The boss won't care.
Yeah, you don't say that.
So, I think it's honestly just an out. It's just an excuse of what you do when people are knocking on your door and saying, why did I get my goal yet? Why did I get my goal yet? Because it happens. Look at any law of attraction form. 99% of the posts you'll see are exactly that. People saying, I haven't got my goal yet. Why haven't I got my desire yet? It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. And they'll always have some sort of excuse. But the one they love to pull out is you're doing it to get the desire, not just to feel good. Well, duh.
Yeah.
That's why I started this.
Right, yeah. That's why, okay, well, I can't pay the bills with, hey, I'm feeling really good. Does that count? Right? Try paying your rent with that. And
it doesn't work.
See what happens, right? So, it just, most people, when you look at law of attraction forums or things like that, most people aren't getting the things they want. And I think it's partially a fault of the system, the teachings, and it's also partially a fault of, just people who don't know how to apply the techniques, obviously. And that's understandable. People, it takes development, but it's also part of the system too, because it's advertised as this quick fix, just visualize, just put this on your vision board and you'll get everything you want. Right? So it's advertised as quick fix and it's really not. So I want to tell you, like I said, it does work. It does work. And if you're not getting results, it's not because the law of attraction or magic doesn't work. It's because, I'm sorry, you're not applying it properly. Okay?
That makes sense.
So that brings me into my first point. The first point is, be honest with yourself. This is not a time to sugarcoat things. Like I said, if you've been going for, maybe 3 months. 3 months is sort of...
6 months.
Yeah, 3 months is sort of excusable. But 6 months, if you've been going for 6 months, or a year or longer, and there's zero progress. I'm not saying you have to have the whole thing, especially if it's a really big goal.
Right.
But if there's zero progress in 6 months or more, then you're doing something wrong. And I don't mean to be blunt, but you're doing something wrong. Okay? That's just the fact of the matter. So if you're not seeing progress in 6 months, you have to reevaluate what you're doing. If you are going for that long and, nothing's happening, then you're doing something wrong. And you have to be honest with yourself. You're not applying the principles properly. Or you just don't know the right principles. Let's be honest. If, you're doing everything that you think you should be doing right and it's not happening, either you're not doing the principles right or you have the wrong principles. Right? So that might not be your fault if you're following a system that just isn't working. That's very possible. So, but you have to reevaluate what's going on. And again, be honest with yourself. Don't sugarcoat it. What am I doing here that isn't bringing my goal to me? Because yes, a lot of this is about feeling good, but it's also very practical, is it not? It's also, you're doing this to get your desire. Let's not, lie to ourselves. You're not doing this to feel good, right? And that's what everyone says it is, but it's not. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest things I've had to debunk, and a lot of people have gotten upset about that. Oh, no, it's just about feeling good. It's not. It's not. You are doing this because you have a desire, and you want to fulfill that desire, and, you want it to come to you. So if it's not coming, figure it out. Be a scientist. How many times have I said, magic is science, right? Law of attraction is science. If you're not getting the results you expect, you're not putting in the input that is required, because it's input-output. So, that's what you have to look at. And we'll be talking about more about that, later on in the podcast. And, through all my blog posts, I have tons of blog posts about how to apply all these principles. But, it's just, you have to be honest with yourself. And that's really the biggest thing in all of this, I think. If you've been going for a while, don't say, oh, well, I'm feeling good, and it's just right there. And if that's not really how you feel, what are your true emotions? Because a lot of this is where people are faking the emotions. And I want to get that out of the way, that you don't fake it. A lot of people think that you fake the emotions when you're trying to manifest. You don't fake the emotions because it won't do anything. Yeah. It won't manifest.
I've tried that. It doesn't work.
Right.
You have to find where you link up with it and go with that.
Exactly. Right. It won't manifest anything. It won't do anything. It won't accomplish anything if you are faking your emotions and pretending to feel good when you really don't. Right? So be honest with your emotions. What do you really feel? When you think about your desire, what's your default emotion? Before you have the chance to filter and edit, say, oh, I'm supposed to feel good about that. Okay. No. What's your initial reaction? When you think about the money, when you think about the relationship, when you think about whatever it is, what's your initial reaction? That's your vibration underneath of it all. Underneath of the fake
I've tried
facade. That's redundant. Underneath of the facade. What's your default reaction right away? That is your current vibration. And that's what the universe is seeing. That's what your subconscious is holding. And that is what is manifesting. So don't fake your emotions and be very real with yourself. Because a lot of people are afraid to admit where they are, right? They're afraid to say, this is where I am, this is what's going on. And, because they think that, oh, if I admit where I am, then I'm just going to get more of the same stuff. No, you have to admit where you are first, right? Yep. What do I always say in my classes? Start with where you are.
Yep, that's right. Where you are.
Don't pretend that you're all the way over there. I can be a millionaire. I can, I'm feeling it. I'm rich. I'm abundant. It's not, the universe is not buying it.
It's not going to buy it.
No.
When it comes to that specific goal.
Right. It's not going to buy it. So, be honest with your emotions. And, when you realize where you are, then you can change it. But if you don't admit where you are, you can't change it. Right? So that it's stupid. You have to start with where you are. All right. So that is the first point. The second point is to quit focusing on failure. Okay? So a lot of what happens here is that people will kind of go on the other end of the faking thing, with number one. People will start, focusing on how it's not working, and it'll never work, right? That's what they're thinking. They're just thinking about how it's not here yet. Now, someone might say, but you just told me to be real. Yes, I did tell you to be real. But being real is not the same thing as hyper-focusing on failure. There's a difference between, right now I don't have what I want, and, oh my God, I'm never going to get what I want. There's a difference. The first one is honesty, and that's good. The second one is perpetuation of current reality, manifestation. Right?
First one is, I'm here right now.
I'm here right now.
The second one is, I will always be here.
Exactly. Now, that might seem very similar, but it's not. They're worlds apart. Okay? They're worlds apart. So, don't focus on failure. And I see this so much. This is probably the most common thing that I see. Okay, I have clients, or I see people in the comments, or I just know people who have a goal, and they say to themselves, or they say to someone else, I'm never going to get it because it's not happening. And so it's just never going to happen, or I'm so frustrated it's not happening. They might not even say in words, it's never going to happen, but just by saying, I'm so frustrated it's not happening. Okay, maybe you say that once to really be honest that those are your emotions at this moment, but you don't keep telling that story.
And I know, like, for one of my goals, I used to be ashamed of it.
Right. Sure.
And I used to be like, well, other people don't want this certain thing, so why should I?
Right.
Like in the same situation.
Right. Yeah. So you have to really control your focus. That's really the big thing with all this. Control your focus. If you are focusing on and not being here, it's going to continue to not be here. It just can't do anything different. It can't do what you're not holding within yourself. Because your subjective universe will become, manifest in the objective universe. Right? So just don't do that. I know, just don't do that. It's not that easy, obviously, or else we'd all be doing it. We'd all be changing it. But you really, you have so much control, right? And you have to realize where your focus is most of the time and what power that has. What absolute insane power that has. Now, the more you do this, the more power it will have because you'll get better at this and you'll become more of a creator. But everyone in the whole world has insane amounts of power just because it's their inherent power. It's what they have from birth. Now, a lot of people's focus is scattered, so, it won't be as powerful. But as you focus more long-term, more, where you have a longer lasting focus, then you'll have more power there. Now, you don't want that to happen when you're hyper-focused on the negative, right? Because it's just going to bring more of that. I mean, we're really good at manifesting the negative, right? So you just don't want to do that. So, that's the big thing. Now, so again, don't focus on failure. Just do your best. Do what you have to do. There's no really shortcut here besides get control of yourself. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to be really blunt here. And, I'm good at this. There, in magic, in the law of attraction, I'm sorry, there's no room for weakness. Because if you're weak with your focus, if you're weak with your will, your resistance will just eat you alive.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger the goal, the more it'll happen, right? If you're weak-willed, stick with simple stuff, okay? Just, there's someone in the comments, and if he's listening to this, he'll know who he is, but who keeps saying, well, I'll just really increase the momentum of my energy, and then I'll deal with all the resistance, and I'll just really break through it all at once. I'm like, look.
No, no, you won't.
I'm like, look, I've seen you. You've posted, you've commented when you're under the weight of crushing resistance, a mountain of resistance, and it is not pretty. No. Now, this guy's been tempted to give up on the law of attraction before.
Yeah.
Now, you can have this moment of bravado when everything is, you're really desperate to get your goal. I'm just gonna push my way through and nothing's gonna stop me. Well, that sounds good now. But it's not reality. It's not really.
Especially when outside forces attack you while you're trying to do it. Then it's like, not only are you trying to push through it, but you've got your, people in your life or things in your life happening that are actually eating some of that energy up, eating up some of that willpower.
Exactly. So that is not pretty. That's not, So if you're, again, I don't mean to be blunt, but this goes back to being honest with yourself. If you're weak-willed right now, every magician, and that's what you are if you're a law of attraction practitioner, every magician starts out weak-willed. Most of them anyway. Very few have a strong will to begin with, right? So if you're weak-willed, stick with small stuff. Stick with $20 here, or whatever your goal is. A small manifestation, things that are believable, current level goals. Stick with small stuff right now, or very, 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 very small next level goals that really mean something to you, but not so much that it's going to be crushing. Build your tolerance up. When you're lifting weights, you don't start with 100 pounds or something. You start with little dumbbells or whatever. You start really small.
Yep.
I used to when I was in high school, I had to take alternative gym because I'm blind and I can't do most of the games they're doing, and I used to have to lift weights.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I was joking.
Oh,
I was being sarcastic. Alternative gym, duh.
Well, other people probably don't know.
That's true, they don't know.
So I had to lift weights, and I started really, really small, and then by the end, I wasn't.
You must have been really good.
No, I really was not. I hated it with a passion.
Really?
But yes, but
you're very strong.
Yeah, but I don't know. But by the end though, I don't even know what the weights were, how heavy they were or anything. I don't remember.
You probably start at 10 or 20 pounds because they have the machine.
Right, exactly.
So you probably start at 10 and 20 pounds.
Right.
I've gone past 100, 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I did, but by the end it was a lot stronger. That's what it is. You have to break down the muscle fibers, and they have to rebuild, and they're stronger, and then you do it again, after a few days, and that's how it works, right? So that's how law of attraction is. Start small because you're weak-willed. I'm sorry. Again, this is, I guess tough love, you could say. Just brutal truth, brutal honesty. This goes back to number one. If you're weak-willed, just start small, okay?
Yeah.
And give yourself some time. All right, so I think it's about time for a quick break. Once we return, we will continue our discussion of what to do when your desire just isn't manifesting. Once again, you are listening to Co-Create Your Life. Welcome back to Co-Create Your Life. Before the break, we were discussing what you can do when your desire just isn't manifesting. And we discussed so far, number 1, be honest with yourself. Don't fake your emotions. Don't pretend it doesn't bother you when it really does. And number 2, just stop focusing on failure. All right, so number 3, make your desire more believable. Now, this is a big one. And this is actually, I was almost going to do the podcast on what to do when your goal seems impossible, because that's another good one, right? And that's...
we should do that one at some point.
We should, yeah. We'll cover that a bit here.
Yeah.
But, when your goal just seems really, really hard to imagine, you just really...
Yeah, that's me.
You have to make it more believable. And I'll give you some tips. Really. So if you're being honest, and if you're not focusing on failure, that's first of all going to make a huge difference. Because you're probably doing one of those two things. You're either not being honest with yourself, that you're really not doing so well, and or you are focusing on failure. Probably one of those two.
Yeah.
But let's say you fix one of those, or both. You got to make the goal more believable. Okay, so this is, people will say, well, it just seems so impossible. Okay, let it be impossible right now. That's okay. You're just not, your subconscious structures don't support your goal right now, and that's okay. That's okay. Really, it is.
Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah.
So now make it more believable. Make it more believable to yourself. Because here's the thing I want to tell everyone. Again, this stuff is real. Okay, because I see people making excuses for, why it's not happening, why it's not possible. We had another conversation in the comments recently. Well, this goal just isn't possible because blah, 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 blah. Excuse. And I'm like, okay, it's not possible, for you.
Someone tried telling me that tonight about something.
Oh, really? You have to tell me later.
They're like, well, you don't need it, and blah, 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 blah. And because you have other gifts and whatever and whatever.
Oh.
And I'm just like, thanks for putting me down. I didn't say that.
Right. So, you just, whatever you think is possible is possible. Whatever you think isn't possible. But, again, you are the creator. If you're going to let the world dictate what's possible, then you're not really much of a creator. Okay? So...
And it was a teachable moment because it's like, well, if that bothers me that somebody says that, then I have to work on that.
Right. Exactly. So, make it more believable. But realize, again, you are a creator. You have say over this. And you can decide what's possible. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. It's not easy. But if you're just going to say, well, it's not possible because... blank, 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 then you're letting the world dictate to you what your reality can be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I have made sure that I do not, I have really worked on it over the past several years.
Sure.
Just because somebody says it can't be done or they can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it.
Exactly.
And I just don't. I'm very careful who I let interfere or who I listen to. Right. On that.
Yeah. So, it's just, you can't do that to yourself. You just, you dictate what's real, what's possible in your life. You have the key to create your own reality. Okay. That's, I've been saying lately, I'm left-hand path, and that's what I'm all about. I decide what's possible in my reality. Growing up being blind, I don't mean to pull the blind card, but it's a good example. But growing up being blind, like, I would get people saying, how do you even do this or that? Or, I'm like, I just didn't even think that it might not be possible. I mean,
me too.
You don't know until you try. People will say, how do you program? I could never program being blind. I'm like, I just tried. I never really thought about it not being possible. If you assume that's possible, then it's going to be a lot easier.
Well, and people, because I just For those that don't know, I just got a job as the music coordinator at one of the Catholic churches here.
Right.
And everyone and their brother will come up to me and say, "How did you memorize all that?"
Yeah.
And I tell them exactly because I don't really memorize it.
Right, we have a system.
I use a headphone and people...
Good.
Yeah,
I'm just
good.
that good.
I should just say that, but I don't.
But
people are shocked, and I'm just like, well...
You find a way.
You have to find a way.
You have to find a way. So, you decide what's possible for you. Now, one thing you can do when you're trying to make it more believable, do everything you can to find evidence in your current reality. Now, this is not lying. Again, you want to be very realistic, very honest. You want to be very realistic and very honest about all this. But do everything you can do to find evidence for this goal. Okay? So you might only be able to find them in very small ways right now. But if you find even a little bit of evidence, then that will be the seed of your manifestation.
Yep.
I read the book Mind Power to the 21st Century by John Kehoe like a year and a half ago. And, I don't use much from that book at this point. I mean, it's a decent enough book, but, it's just sort of simplistic. But one thing I did get from it was his story about how he manifested abundance. He used to have very, very little. He used to live in a cabin, more or less off the grid, in the middle of the woods, nothing around. And he said, I couldn't really look at anything and say, oh, there's abundance. He said, I would look at all the flowers around, all the trees, anything I could, and say, there's not only one flower, not only two flowers, but there's an abundance of flowers. This is abundance. This is a manifestation of abundance here. Or I think he gave the example of if there was a bowl of grapes. There's not just one grape, not just two grapes. There's an abundance of grapes.
Yep.
I can feel that abundance. That might seem silly, but it's not.
Works for him.
Anything you can do to get that little, toe in the door, so to speak, to your manifestation, to the vibration of it, will work. Just find any little manifestation or any little evidence that you can that this is possible.
Yeah.
And that'll be it. So find that evidence somewhere in your life that, you can do this, that this is possible. Find other people who have done it before you. Okay? Because if you can find other people who have done it, then obviously it's possible, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Obviously it's possible then. So that's what you just have to do. So, find evidence of your desire in your reality in some way, even if it's really, 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 really small, and build on that and really make a huge deal out of that. Oh my gosh, there's an abundance of grapes right here. I can feel abundance. That'll work. That'll work.
Because you just want to get the feeling.
You just want to get the feeling.
You don't even need the visualization part. Just get your mind.
Right. Just get the feeling. You don't need anything else.
And then you can meditate on that and build the manifestation you want from there.
However you can access that feeling, go for it. Really. That's all that matters. So, and then another thing you can do is... and this gets a little more advanced, and I won't go into too much, but, I've shared the NLP technique about choosing what images, what sensations, what emotions you're going to go with. And this will be a lot more. I'm releasing this week. You can register for the class, The Art of Reality Creation 2.0, and I'll have in the show notes the link to register for that. It's going to start on April 1st. I'll release the first class. It'll be 3 classes probably. But... in that class, I'm going to have something, and this is really corny. I'm sorry, you guys. I plan on calling it the Reality Control Room.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really corny. I'm sorry, but it kind of came to me, and it just sort of stuck. Like, yeah. So now, I'm always like, all right, I'm going to enter my Reality Control Room and, get this thing all figured out, right?
Of course you're a programmer.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for those of us that aren't?
It's not hard. The reality control room was really easy to enter.
Okay, good.
I mean, relatively easy, but it's a mix of NLP and mindfulness is really, I'm not going to give any more away than that, but entering your reality control room, you'll sign up for the class, you'll learn more about that, but,
Don't miss it. It's amazing
stuff.
Yeah,
don't miss it. Mm-hmm. Of course she has to say, so she's my wife. But
secrets that you will never find on this blog, so please sign up.
I will never talk about the reality control room on the blog. I will never tell you what it is anyway. Besides, again, mix of NLP, mindfulness, and some other stuff. It's really good stuff. So, but, make it more believable by, entering that, reality control room. But basically, by choosing what images, I have a post where I talk about, you can choose which images are real to you and which ones aren't. Right? So if you think of something that you don't want, you have to find a way to let that go. Right? That's part of don't focus on failure. And when you think of an image that you do want, again, I won't give too many details, but when you think of an image you do want, then you want to really, really, really tell your subconscious mind, hey, this is what I want. This is it. This is a manifestation of that. Okay? So that is really what you want to do to make it more believable. You want to pick and choose what's in your reality. So that's really all I'll say about that. But, it's a really useful technique. I've done it, and it really helps to make it more believable to you. Really, because you're telling your subconscious mind, you're speaking the language, this reality control room, you're speaking the language of your subconscious and basically programming it directly. That's why I call it the control room. Directly manipulating the controls of your subconscious mind and saying, okay, no, don't want that. Don't want that. Oh, yeah, I want this one. I want this one. Okay? And then it'll start giving you more of this one. Okay, yes, this one. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. That's what you want to do. You want to speak the language of your subconscious. Okay? So that's that. So the fourth thing you can do to make your manifestation come more quickly and to kind of get out of this rut that you might be in if you're stuck is be persistent. How often do I talk about persistence?
That's right.
Right? How often do I talk about persistence? You have to really be persistent. Now, again, if it's a next level goal, you should be focusing on it every single day. Now, I get that these goals can be scary because, again, it's scary to choose them with your will. That's like the first step. Choose it with your will. I choose to have blank, right? That's scary because it puts you on the line. It puts your will on the line. It's not just a daydream anymore. Now it's actually something real that you actually are working towards. And you can fail, right? You can fail. And that's scary. So, you want to be persistent, though. Now, in the beginning, again, you won't believe it. But still be persistent, still visualize, still journal. I told the story on the support call, which you can see on Thursday's post, about the class with Joe Tabanella and his client who wanted to be on TV, an actor on TV, I think. And Joe told him, journal every day about being an actor, like make it real, pretend you're there right now. Journal every night before bed, journal. And he did that, and for the first month, he didn't believe a word of what he was writing. It just, okay, I went on the set today, and blah, blah, blah. The director said, said this and whatnot. It didn't believe any of it, right? But after a month, it started to sink into his subconscious. It started sinking into his subconscious, and it started happening. Within 2 months, he got it. Definitely within 3 months. Within 2 months, I think it started. Within 3 months, he got it. He got the position he wanted.
And he means, to meditate every day on it.
Yes.
Not just feel good about it, think about it and feel good. Sit down, all the energy up, or whatever, you sit down, whatever you guys do. I say sit down, call the energy up, and actually, feel it, mess with the images, visualize it, be in the energy of your manifestation.
Yep.
Whether that's deep breathing or journaling or whatever you do.
I like to say struggle with it. And I know people don't like that word struggle, but
struggle with it. Yeah,
it really is struggle with it. It for some reason, I don't know why, it sort of reminds me of. You're gonna laugh at me. The story of Jacob wrestling with the angel.
I love it. Yeah,
really?
It makes sense.
It sort of reminds me of that. Like, it comes to you in the middle of the night and you're struggling with it, and
he held his own too.
He held his own. And he forced the angel to give him a blessing, right? Isn't that how it went?
Yes, and he did.
Because the angel would have been out of alignment. So.
Right. So he forced the angel to give him a blessing. He won against the angel. So that's how it can feel sometimes. You have this really tough angel coming to you, in your resistance, and you struggle with it. You can't just lie down and be like, whatever, No, you have to struggle with it and make it work and get through it. So I don't know why I
forgot why they wrestled, though.
I forgot
why they wrestled.
I don't know if there was. I don't even
know
if
it his hip.
I know he broke his hip.
I don't know if he broke it after the blessing or before.
Before. He was pretty beat up.
Jacob's hip, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, he was pretty beat up.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, he was pretty up by it. So, you have to struggle with it. I'm sorry, again, people don't like any of these negative terms. Resistance, struggle, that kind of thing. I'm not going to say suffering. Suffering is sort of a pointless sort of thing.
Please don't use that word as a trigger.
But, you have to struggle with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the tension thing.
If you didn't have to, again, that's your subconscious structures. If you didn't have to struggle with it, it would be here right now, just like that. Mm-hmm. And, you just have to do it. So struggle with the resistance. Don't just, I'm feeling good about it. Yay. Actively struggle with the resistance. Actively work through it.
And then make it give you a blessing.
Yeah. So, let the energies come up. Let the resistance come up. Struggle with it. Work through it.
You get a blessing.
Yeah,
you do. It does really feel it. At the other end, when you're through it, you feel this wonderful sense of, it left. This resistance, I worked through something. Now I'm closer. I love that feeling. That is like the best feeling ever. When you've worked through the resistance, when it's palpably left, it's palpably, gone.
It reminds me of, and I won't say it publicly, Brandon, but your goal that you're working on like right now.
Yes.
I don't know if you want me to say it.
No, it's okay. Well, whatever.
But your goal that you're working on, and it hasn't
quite happened yet.
It hasn't quite happened yet. I feel like you're really struggling with it.
Right. Oh, God, yes.
But now you could be like, give me a blessing.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, work.
Well, those are the greatest goals. I remember
exactly.
In December, I had this really huge goal, right? This really huge financial goal. I don't know if I should say how much it was or not, but I had this really huge financial goal. And it was huge for us, right?
Yeah.
Double of probably our average income. And I struggled with it all month. It was really, really hard. I'll be honest. I struggled with that thing all month. Anyone who says you just have to feel good and that's how you... No. God, no.
And you got it the last minute. Oops.
What's that, Justin?
Wears you out, doesn't it?
Oh, God, yes. So
you got it at the last minute, too.
I struggled with it all month, and it took almost the whole month.
And then boom.
And then it just... And I remember the moment it came, I was like, oh, my God. It happened. I can't believe it. So that's how it is. You struggle with it. Be persistent. Struggle with it. Do what it takes. Do it every day, no matter how scary it is, no matter how much... Now, again, if you're weak-willed... No, I'm sorry, no offense. If you're weak-willed and you can't take it, drop it. Okay, for your own sanity, drop it. And choose something smaller. But, and I almost did that in December because this goal was so scary. Okay?
Somehow.
But I'm like, you know what? I won't respect myself if I drop it. I'm sort of like that. I'm just going to do it. And it happened. It worked. But, oh, God, it was tough. So, struggle with it, work with it, do what you have to do to work through that goal and make it happen. Just like Jacob working with the angel, right? So that's really what it takes. Okay. Is just working through it. Again, if you're weak-willed though, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You have to know where you are. Again, honesty. Go back to point number 1, honesty, right? If you're too weak-willed to really be able to deal with it, then drop it for a while. Well, that's okay. That's okay. Now, a lot of people say, oh yeah, when I dropped it, it all happened. Probably not if you're struggling with it that much. Maybe. Sometimes if you really struggle with it enough and you really change your subconscious structures, then when you drop it, it'll happen. But if your will is weak and you drop it, it's probably not going to happen because you just haven't changed your subconscious structures enough to make it actually feasible. You might see an improvement because you changed them somewhat, but not to the degree that you want. Right? So that's important to know. But, really, there's no shame in dropping it. And that actually goes into my number 5 point. Be willing to reevaluate your desire.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not going to work. Either your will is too weak and you can't do it right now, and you have to build up to it, just like the weights. You're trying to lift a 100-pound weight, 150-pound weight, and you just can't do it. You have to go down to 50 or 20 or whatever. Sometimes your will is just too weak. That's okay. Or sometimes it's just your higher self's protecting you against that path. It's just not the path.
Yeah, that's another reason.
And we've talked about this before, right? Sometimes it's just not the path for you. And that's okay too.
That would be a hard one. That would be hard to accept, though.
Yeah, it would be very hard to accept.
Yeah, it is. Those are two of your main ones. Sometimes you might be in a context situation where what you want isn't available unless you make a choice to willingly do damage to other people. So you have to also be alert. Okay, if you truly want this, you can do this, but this person will lose so and so. Are you okay with this? And you realize this is probably not something you should be doing. Right. I mean, that can be another reason that people do not take that into account. Like, I want. Okay, but if you're in a spot where resources are somewhat limited, you're either going to have to move or wait or do something different. Yeah, so it's just one of those things. Sometimes also it's not for you as far as maybe the balance is off. Yep. It could be any of those things. Yep.
Usually you can tell if it's not.
You can tell, and the other thing you should do is calling back to the unseen here. Divination to help you out. Yeah, you should do the next Unseen podcast. See how I'm plugging the podcast?
The unseen world.
It's true, though.
Yep. Yeah. So, you definitely have to really take that into consideration. But I do want to say, like I said before, sometimes you can't help but harm someone else. I'm not saying you do it on purpose, but for instance, if you get a job, all the other applicants to that job didn't get it.
That's right.
By definition.
Didn't get it.
So, sometimes harm is necessary.
That happened in my situation.
Right. Yeah.
The job that I got.
That's a perfect example, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because go ahead.
Well,
sure is.
The job that I got, she left, and
unwillingly,
and
because I want to give it a law of attraction context. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this music coordinator position that Christine has, the previous person, not an awesome manifester. First of all, her hours got cut by 2/3. Second of all, she had all sorts of problems with the church.
And the priests.
And all this kind of stuff. And she's complaining to Christine about it. Well, Christine gets in there, and the church, everyone's really sweet to her. Everyone's awesome, and they still are. She's bringing out the best in them, right? The priest loves it. And he was sort of, I think, hesitant at first, but now he's totally on board. And everyone in the office is really nice to her. And
I don't know if he was hesitant. I don't know.
No, because I know he wasn't sure about music at first.
He didn't really, because he thought, but then I got in there and I think he changed his mind.
That's what I'm saying. He was hesitant at first.
I guess you're right, yeah.
So she got a totally different reality than this other lady. It's same church, same everything, same people, but totally different reality. And the lady was like, you know what? She's like, the previous coordinator, she's like, because she was going, what happened was she was going on vacation and Christine was filling in. And she said about all the problems she's having. She said, I am not leaving this church because X, Y, and Z, you know, they owe me this, they owe me that, you know, and they're doing this to me and they're doing that to me. And I'm not going to leave until they do what I need them to do. Well, you know, something happened because she's gone. She got let go, is what the church told her. They let her go. Christine got the job. So she manifested her way right out of that.
Yeah, well.
I don't mean to laugh at someone's misfortune, but I saw it coming from a mile away. You could just see the negativity off of her and the bitterness and the resentment, and she was manifesting I don't know what. But
and it was years in coming.
Right.
Many after the first, because our church has been through 3 priests, because the very first one, like, that's been there forever and ever and ever, retired.
Right.
And then the next one came. Well, actually, no. Then there was an interim priest, and that drove her nuts. And then the next priest after that came. The second one, the second major one came. Yeah. And I can understand him. He was a little finicky. I can get it because he kind of gave me trouble too a little.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, whatever. So then he retired, and now this priest is the interim.
Right.
I don't know, unless he stays, I don't know.
Right.
But they didn't get along either. It's like
Well,
at some point
manifested it.
It's you.
So, you know, Christine got the job at the expense of this other, and now here's the thing. Now, Christine, you did a bit of black magic. I'm sorry, because this woman specifically said to Christine, she's like, "Don't take it if they offer you the job." Okay, well, they offered Christine. She's like, "Heck yeah!" And I'm sorry, I would have done the same thing. So I'm not telling you you're wrong. She took the job. She said, "Don't take it." Well, that's the church's choice. If they are going to get rid of someone, if they're going to let someone go because they don't like their performance, and that position's open, definitely.
I don't know if Christine did black magic.
Well, I'm saying in the term of she is doing it out of self-interest, right?
Oh, okay. Left-hand path.
The left-hand path, yeah.
I like it.
The Temple of Set, which I said I'm studying, kind of
I saw that.
Makes it synonymous. You know, black magic's not a bad thing on that path.
I saw that.
Where, you know, left-hand path and black magic, you're doing black magic is basically changing the objective universe through your will. Okay. Yeah. Very purposefully, and you know, you have your own self-interest, you know, at heart. So that was black magic, which is awesome. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
You know, she took it and she manifested that, and it just sort of fell into her lap. So, you know, it wasn't a ritual. They would call it lesser black magic, is what they would call it.
Yeah, because it's not that I didn't try, but I deliberately went against her because she said don't take it because they're trying to butter you up and then blah blah blah, just go on. But
they weren't.
They weren't.
They've been.
Well, I mean, just because you know, you have a right to take it.
Exactly. Yeah. It was empty. I mean,
woman anything.
What everyone told her, even her family told her, if you don't take it, someone else will. They're not just gonna, you know, say, oh, well, okay, we'll take her back. No. You know, so, yeah, it was open. She took it. That's how it was. So, yeah, come back to the point. You have to know where the path is going. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was a great example. And, again, sometimes what you do will harm another.
Yep.
But how can I say it lightly? Sometimes they have it coming, I guess?
They do sometimes have it coming. Absolutely.
So...
I'm on board with that.
Right. So you walk your path, and you know it's just gonna what's going to happen is going to happen, right? Yep. So
I think she wanted to leave for a long time.
Oh, probably that was probably her higher
side of what you're doing. So you just want to make sure that when you need to know why you're not getting it. It could be you. It could be outside forces, but It's very important to figure out why, so you don't bash your head against a brick wall. You know, because if you want a promotion and you look up and Rick and James are going to be there for 8 years,
right?
Well, you're going to want to find another way to get a promotion,
right?
Or do something to remove Rick and James,
right?
Those are your options. You can do either, but those are your options. A lot of people don't want to actually admit that. They want to, it'll come to me. No, James is not going anywhere.
Right, exactly.
Neither is Rick.
And there is such a thing as whose will is stronger. Okay, if you're a magician, let's just say like a left-hand path magician or a black magician or whatever, and someone else is even indirectly where they have a strong will, or
they're in strong position,
they
can have a strong earthly position.
Whoever's stronger is going to win, right? That's just sort of how it works. And sometimes by strength you can overcome it. But sometimes it's the better thing for everyone involved to sort of say, all right, that's not the path of least resistance. I'm going to go another direction.
No.
Right? So sometimes that's the easier way. And there's no right or wrong in that. You have to evaluate everything involved. Do I really want to go up against the will of such and such who, really has this, in the bag, so to speak? They really have it set for them. Or do I want to kind of go around and get the same result, but in another way?
Yeah.
Right. That's your choice. Okay, that's your choice, but you have to decide on that. So reevaluate your desire. Is it sometimes again? One last thing: is it really what you want? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you'll sabotage yourself because it's not really what you want, or sometimes you're scared of having it. Even though you might want it, but you're scared of having it. What would that mean? So deal with those feelings, right? And then work towards it. So reevaluate. See first of all, see if there are any hidden pockets of resistance like that. But see if it's even something you want, or see if it's just kind of uphill. To like pushing a boulder uphill, so to speak, to try to go against the other person's will, or to try to make this happen anyway. Sometimes it's just easier to find another path, right? And that's okay. So do that. But obviously you can get what you want, but sometimes there's just an easier way of doing it that you're just not looking at because you're too stubborn, and there's no honor in that. You want to really decide what's the best path, right, for all involved. So that's what it is. And again, those are the 5 things. Just to summarize, number 1, be honest with yourself. Number 2, quit focusing on failure. Number 3, make your desire more believable. Number 4, be persistent. And number 5, be willing to reevaluate your desire. So those are the points. And, if you do these things, I am certain, if you really, really apply it and not just make excuses like some people do, really apply it, I'm certain you will move things along. You will really kick it into gear, and your desire will come very quickly. Okay, again, my time frame is, if you're not getting it in 6 months, and it's a next level goal, and it's relatively believable to you, you're doing something wrong. Or you're sabotaging it, or you have to reevaluate your desire. So, one of those things. But if you're not getting it within a certain amount of time, and there's no good reason for it, in the external world, then you're clearly applying the principles in the wrong way, right? So you want to reevaluate that and see what you're doing. And these 5 points, I think, will really help with doing that and to really make progress. Right. So I really hope that helps. I think that this discussion was very necessary, and
I loved it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure what I was going to do today, and then I saw the discussion from Tuesday, and I feel like I didn't say enough in that discussion. So I'm like, you know what? I think more can be said about that. So that was today's podcast. So once again, if you want to see the show notes or the transcript or leave a comment on the podcast, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/create016. And if you'd like to subscribe to us on iTunes or rate or review the podcast, we would appreciate it very much. You can go to cocreationcoaching.org/create-iTunes, and that will redirect you to our iTunes page. So with all that, I hope that everyone has a wonderful weekend. I am Brandon Oliveris.
And I'm Christine Oliveris.
And I'm Justin Williams.
And anything is possible.